Hi, Squeaky. Come here. Oh. Whoa. Hi, Caledon. Caledon, my Caledon. Hey friends, Shay here. So today I am here to talk to you about my December reads, do a little haul because I didn't buy too many books. I bought a lot of manga though, so my manga log and haul will be much bigger. But let's go ahead and dive in. So let's quickly do my December book stats. I've got those all squared away finally. Finally had some time dedicated to that. So let's do this. I feel like it's cutting off my head, so I'm very sorry. Alrighty, so in the month of December, I ended up reading 17 books. I did not reread anything. I actually didn't reread anything this whole last quarter, which was interesting. When it comes to physical formats in which I read things, 5 of them were physical books, 5 of them were ebooks, and 7 of them were audiobooks. My average rating for the month was 3.94. I do blame this on the fact that Izzy and May had me read Frisky the Snowman. If you have not heard about the adventures of Frisky the Snowman, I will leave the video where Izzy has clips of us reading it on a live stream together, so you can get secondhand trauma with me from it. That book lives more rent-free in my head than I want it to. We'll just put it that way. When it comes to Kindle Unlimited checkouts, only 3 of my reads came from Kindle Unlimited this month. And then when it comes to genres, I read 3 historical fictions to wrap up the Goodreads project. I believe that linked in the corner for you. I read 7 contemporary romances, 6 fantasy or paranormal romances. I do include alien romances in that category. And 1 bonkers romance. As you know, that is Frisky the Snowman. So overall, it was a good reading month. Only had a couple of duds due to projects and friends making me do things so that they don't have to do them alone. So let's go ahead and talk about the books that I read. I've got my little list here in my journal of everything I read to make life easier for myself. So we're just going to consult that to make sure I don't miss anything. I don't have any of my physicals downstairs, so I'm sorry about that in advance, but I made sure the haul books were down here. So first I have Bound for Their Pleasure by L.V. Lane. This is from her Barbarian series. I forget the name of the series, but I thoroughly enjoyed this one. I tend to really enjoy this series. I got one for Stuff Your Kindle Day back in the summer, and I've read a couple more since then, and these are just kind of like turn off your brain fun kind of books. I gave it a solid 4. It's not the best thing I've ever read, of course, but I had a solidly good time with it. The next one I have on this list is Did You Hear About Kitty Carr? I read this for the Goodreads project. Again, I talk about it more over there, so I won't say too much here. I did rate it 4 stars. And then also for that same project, I read Lady Tan's Circle of Women, which I solidly gave a 4 star. I felt like this book was trying to do a little too much heavy lifting, maybe. I just felt like it was trying a little too hard, or was maybe a little too in your face with some of the themes. But again, solid 4. It wasn't bad. It was just a little much for me. And then I did end up finishing Heaven and Earth Grocery Store. I was about halfway through when I stopped reading it for the Goodreads project. I did go on to finish it later in the month. And it's solidly a good book. It is a sad book. It is a depressing book. But it is a good book. It is well written. And I can see why Barnes & Noble picked it for their book of the year. This isn't one that necessarily feels hopeful all the time. I do think it ends on a good note. I did end up giving this 3 stars just because I almost didn't go back to it. But it was good, so it kind of balanced out. So that's kind of my final thoughts on Heaven and Earth Grocery Store. Again, not a bad book at all. It just wasn't necessarily my kind of book. I don't love a book that makes me so depressed I have to stop in the middle. That's just a me thing. The next I have here is Throne of Shadows by Evangeline Anderson. This is also the same author who did Claimed, which I read in that same Stuff Your Kindle vlog that's linked where I talked about the Bound for Their Pleasure book. The first book that I read from that. It's in that same video. But in this one, this is a fae-based fantasy romance. It is very heavy-handed with the fact that she is plus size and that the people of the fae realm don't look kindly upon being plus size. But of course, her man is all about it, loves her curves, loves that he has something to hold on to and he's not going to break her. And he helps her deal with her body image issues. It was sweet. So yeah. Solid 4 stars again. If it wasn't so heavy-handed with the talk of her weight, it could have been 5 because I really liked the setup and where it ended. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. And then I read A Mate for His Christmas Dragon by Zoe Chant. This was just a really cute holiday paranormal romance in which we're dealing with someone who finds their mate and they are the Christmas dragon, but of course their mate is a total Scrooge. So, you know, it's not necessarily like surprising in any way, shape, or form, but it was a really good time and I really enjoyed myself. The next one I have here is Heaven Official's Blessing, Volume 8, the final volume. I cried. This is perfection. I've been talking about this series basically for 2 years now, and I love them with my whole heart and soul. So I don't need to say too much about this one. If you've been around my channel at all, you know about this story. I will leave the first video where I talk about the first volume for those of you who haven't, so that you can kind of get my full thoughts on it, because I could spend an hour talking about these two and I'm not going to. So the next two I'm going to talk about together because they're technically part of the same series. So me and my friends, like just my group of online friends where we all chat, decided to read That One Night and Pucking Around all together. May had a couple of weeks off for her job for the holidays, so we opted to all read it together. So we did. That One Night I ended up giving 3 stars just because it was a little too almost fated mate feeling for me in such a short amount of time. And then Pucking Around got a solid 4 stars. My battery's gonna die. I will be back.
A few moments later.
All right, so we were talking about Pucking Around now that I'm back. So Pucking Around is a why choose hockey romance. So we kind of start with the foundation of the couple that we meet in That One Night. But the guy, Jake, his best friend, Caleb, has been in love with him for years. And Caleb is also feeling drawn to our heroine. And then we have Max, our big giant Viking style goalie, who also enters the chat. And I had a great time. Is this the best book ever? No. I would put it on the same level as the Lux Brumalis series for me. I feel like my reading enjoyment was very similar. I think Lux Brumalis did some things a tiny bit better, but I think Pucking Around did other things better. So I think they're pretty comparable. So I think if you like one, you'll like the other kind of a situation. So there is that. I don't want to say too much. I mean, it's a contemporary romance, and there's obviously struggles because we're dealing with queer people and queer stories and a polyamorous relationship. So there's going to be mess in the public eye. And so the way that all went down went a little too easy for me, I guess you could say. But now that I'm reading Pucking Wild in January, sneak peek for January, you can see some more of the fallout of that. And so that's nice to see, just to know that it wasn't absolutely perfect. So moving on, the next one I have is Double Dare You. This is a throuple style motorcycle club story by Ruby Dixon. It was available as an audio arc through Libro, so I ended up picking it up, and I had a good time with it. Again, like a 3.5, 4 star, not anything to necessarily like change the foundation of my life, but it was a solidly good time. Essentially, the motorcycle club president, his sister, ends up kidnapped by traffickers, so they're trying to hunt her down to take her back. And these two guys end up finding her, and because of other things going on, and it was a bigger deal than they thought, they end up having to kind of go into hiding together, and they all have chemistry together. The older of our heroes is bisexual, and he does have feelings for his partner in the motorcycle club, because technically they always are supposed to be with women together. Some partners end up being together as well, but if they're with another person outside of their duo, the other person is supposed to be present. So it's kind of like a safety thing, as well as what makes this motorcycle club different. So I believe almost all of the books are thruples. So I do plan on going back and reading some of the others. This one just had a higher stakes than I would normally like in this kind of a story. So I think I could enjoy the other books more. The next on the docket is Frisky the Snowman, that I gave 2 stars. I'm just going to link the video. It's already linked. You can learn about Frisky the Snowman over there. It is a Christmas novella about a snowman come to life because this woman has a thing for snowmen and snow on her lady bits. That's all I'm going to say. If you want to traumatize yourself, go ahead and read it, but it was a little much for me. We'll just put it that way. But the next one on the list is I Married an Incubus. I think this is my favorite installment in the Prime Mating Agency series this year. I really love both the hero and the heroine. They're strong in their own rights. Our heroine is in the same situation as I Married a Minotaur, where she was wrongly accused of a crime and was sentenced to this awful, I guess in the US the equivalent would be like Guantanamo Bay style prison, where the worst of the worst end up going and like committing war crimes against the country kind of thing, even though she didn't. Basically all she did was call out this leader of the Incubus people for his lies and his slander, and nobody wants to hear it because incubi aren't supposed to lie. They're all about their truth, like they're physically incapable, like it hurts them. Our Prime Mating Agency friends, our Birdman and his wife, end up stepping in. Keog is his name. I just remembered his name. So Keog ends up stepping in with his wife, and they broker a deal with her to get married to one of the wardens of the prisons on this planet that's like the equivalent of a Guantanamo Bay. They have a couple of options in mind, but Keog finds her mate, of course, because that is what Keog does. When she first shows up, he assumes she's a criminal, so he's not very kind to her. But after talking to her for about 10 minutes, he realizes that something is seriously wrong with what happened to her. And so he changes his tune, gets to know her, and they have a beautiful relationship. And they both help each other figure out what's going on and to make where they live a better place. There are some pretty high stakes in this one, and so I really enjoyed it all around. I thought it was a really good, solid read, and I had a fantastic time. The next one on the list is I finally read the last Mariana Zapata book that I hadn't read, and that is When Gracie Met the Grump. So I've heard this one didn't work for a lot of people, so I've been kind of putting it off, I have to be honest. I also needed a Zapata in my back pocket for a bad day, for a stressful time, and that stressful time finally came up. Essentially, the holidays are always stressful when you work retail. So with this one, I ended up giving it a solid 4 stars. It's not a new 5-star favorite. It's not a 6-star favorite. It is not a new favorite Zapata for me, but I solidly had a good time. I just feel like our hero wasn't as forthcoming as he should have been with certain things going on. I mean, eventually it all works out and it's fine, but yeah, I didn't love that he was being secretive about things that he didn't need to be secretive about, is essentially what happened here. Essentially, our heroine has kind of been on the run her entire life, and then all of a sudden one day, this superhero of her world crash lands in her yard with a broken back that doesn't easily heal, and so he's healing up at her house, and they end up being fated mates. That's all I'm really going to say about it. I do think it's worth a read. I think it's worth a try. If you're interested in a slightly more superhero take on a Mariana Zapata story where there's some higher stakes and things involved than her stories usually have, I think you'll have a great time with it, honestly. So just know that going in. It's not a new favorite because she is experimenting. I would love to read something else from this world. I think the world she created here was amazing. And there are some siblings that are single, so I would love to see them get their stories. The next book that I read is a book called Scrooge by Honey Phillips. So this is a book that I didn't realize was written by Honey Phillips until I was almost done with it. Honey Phillips is one of my authors I wanted to try in 2024. So technically I could say that I've tried Honey Phillips and I liked it, but I wanted to try that specific series. So I'm still leaving it on my list for now. With Scrooge, this is a holiday romance, obviously very much based on A Christmas Carol. We have a Grinch who's all about, money and wealth and certain status. His partner dies. Like, it's very beat for beat A Christmas Carol, but an alien romance at the same time. So that's kind of where we're at. The romance element has a fake dating component to it. Essentially, he has to attend 3 events with a partner. And so he hires our heroine to go on these dates with him, but they fall in love along the way. And he's like, you are not obligated to go on this last date. I want you to come because I want you to come, not because you're paid to come. And he gets to know her brother, who is the Tiny Tim's character, who's kind of sickly and all that kind of stuff. And it ended up being really sweet. I really liked it. I'm definitely excited to read more Honey Phillips now. So yes, solidly had a good time with that. It was probably the best Christmassy book that I read this year. There was another one that I read that I put down, just didn't get back to. I'll get back to it next year. I just have no desire to finish it at the moment. It wasn't filling what I needed at the time, and I don't think it's the book's fault. So I have 3 more to talk to you about. 2 of them I'm going to talk about together because they are the last 2 books in Katie Roberts' Mafia series. So the names on the rebranded situation have been announced. There are covers. So we have Lovely Corruption and Ruthless Redemption. So Lovely Corruption is Aiden's book. He's the brother that's like in charge of the O'Malley family. And his book had him working with a cop's daughter to take down the hero of the last book. But they end up all working together, and the hero of the last book is married to the baby sister of the O'Malleys. So it's very interesting all around, the dynamic. And if you've read the series, you understand what I'm saying. But it's one of those things where, because it's so deep in the series, I can't say too much other than who the books are about. Because politically, for this mafia world, there's already so much that's happened. And I would spoil anything if I talk about the plot. So basically, Aiden is trying to keep the hero of the last book, Dmitry Romanov, away from his baby sister. And the baby sister ends up choosing to go with him anyway. So there's a lot more going on here. There's a lot more to unpack, obviously. But again, because it's so deep in the series, I don't want to spoil it. Again, these are high steam mafia romances. There are dark elements to them. There is a lot of alcohol possession here. So if that is not your thing, do not read these books. That's not going to be for you. I can step away from it and enjoy what Katie's doing with it. And a little bit of possession is not a bad thing for me. So, I mean, I read Christine Feehan, so y'all know that. And then the last book that I read in the year of 2023 was a 5-star read, thankfully. And that is Only When It's Us by Chloe Leese. So I know a lot of people had critiques about how the heroine behaved in the beginning of the book. But I think it's more just calling out the ignorance of a lot of people. And I think overall, as the plot goes on, it worked really well for me. I really love Chloe Leese's writing. I've fallen in love with her this year. I will definitely be reading a lot more Chloe Leese in 2024, so you can look forward to that. And I solidly loved the first installment of the Bergman Brothers series. Our hero is such a cinnamon roll. He is so precious and good without realizing he's being precious and good, which is why he's so good. And I absolutely just had the best time getting to know him and getting to know the Bergman family. And it makes me more excited to continue because I'm really excited to see where this is going to go. All of the Bergmans have a little bit of neurospiciness going on to them. Not anything like major or overt. Our hero in this one, he is mostly deaf. mostly deaf. He does wear hearing aids and he can hear better. But it's one of those things where he got sick and woke, like hospitalized level sick. And when he woke up, his hearing was basically gone. So he goes on a journey of learning to love himself with hearing aids and stuff. And it's really well done. And I really appreciated the journey that was this book. So I do think it's worth your time. Please check it out. It is a great book that I read this year. It didn't make my best of the year list, which you'll get in a few days, but it's still a solidly good book. So now that I've wrapped up everything that I've read, I know this video is long already and I'm sorry. I have a few things to haul and some of them are gifts, so I want to make sure that I haul them. So first up, the lovely Steph at Novelty Corner sent me 2 books. She sent me a copy of Pucking Around, so I have a physical copy because I enjoyed it so much. She's like, I will send you a copy because Steph and Izzy are the reasons why I wanted to read this at all. And the fact that we were all doing it as a group just made it all the more fun because we could all kind of react to some of the bonkers things that happen here all together. And that made it so much fun. I cannot wait to eventually reread this and annotate some of my favorite parts and highlight things because there are the writing is great. So I think it's one where I think there's going to be some fun stuff to come back to. And then I feel bad because they didn't come with notes, but she gave me one of these 2. And the other one was given to me by Christy at A Nerdy Book Life. And I can't remember who gave me which. Because Christy gave me one for my birthday and Steph gave me one for Christmas. So I'm talking about both of them. They are both amazing humans. I love them both so much. And they are kind enough to give me the Larson Brothers series. I have listened to these on audio by Kylie Scott. And I know I like Kylie Scott's writing, so I wanted to own these physically. I do want to reread them and annotate them because there are some amazing things that happen within these books. I really enjoyed them both. This is an amnesia story. This is a redemption kind of story. So I think it's really well done. And then I only have 4 more. I really didn't haul too many books this month. I was very good. So first up is The 7-Year Slip. So many of my friends really loved this book this year. I've seen it on some people's favorites of the year that I really wanted to pick it up. I did love The Dead Romantics year before last. So I'm really excited to give this one a try. I love wibbly wobbly timey-wimey things. So I think this will definitely be right up my alley. And I'm very excited to hopefully read this one by Valentine's Day is my hope. The next one I have here is a light novel, and that is Loyal Soldier, Lustful Beast. Now, this is the first steamship light novel. So if you're unfamiliar with the term steamship, essentially that is an imprint of a publisher that focuses more on smutty romances for women. These are stories geared towards women. So usually you have men who worship the ground the women walk on and things like that. And on the back here it says a light novel romance of danger and desire. And you know, I believe this is like her bodyguard ends up like being the one she wants to be with, but everyone's trying to have her be with someone else. I think that's kind of the setup if I remember right. So I'm very excited to read my first steamship light novel, and hopefully we'll be getting more in the year of 2024 if this goes well. I'm very excited. It does have art throughout, so that will also be a nice touch. So I tried to make sure. I know there was some like more steamy poses and things later, so I wanted to make sure I didn't pull one of those up. But I am very, very excited to give this one a try. So next, obviously, I have the final volume of Heaven Official's Blessing. This is the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition, and it has the beautiful, like, fold-out amazingness here, because I love them. I love them so much. I am such a nerd. I love them so much. But you get to kind of see them in all their forms, in all their glory, and I love it, okay? I love it. I just love it. And then last but not least is another light novel, and that is Spy Family Family Portrait. So this is like a short story, side quest kind of situation. And it does have this really cute little like poster on the inside with Bond and Anya as the focus, and I just love it. So I'm very, very excited to see and read about the shenanigans to get them to their family portrait moment. So my friends, with that said, that is my wrap up and haul for the month of December 2023. Thank you so much for checking out this video. If you are here just because you love me, leave me a dog emoji down below for Mr. Bond here. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.